We're gonna wait maybe 3-4 minutes. It's 6:36 right now, 6:40, we'll get going. How's everyone doing today? Hope everyone's good. We're about to get started. All right, Handy, we got you back live, awesome, good to go. So we'll be letting, we are expecting a few more people to jump in onto our meeting, our webinar tonight, and we'll let them in, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. So good evening, thank you for making it to this awesome webinar. We're gonna get into a cool topic on social impact investing and really just kind of dive into some concepts and talk about some of the work that we're doing throughout the state and how everyone can start getting engaged in this kind of work. So my name is Kelvin Ayala. I'm the Director of Urban Planning and Economic Development here at Led by Us. LBU and Associates is a community and economic development consulting agency. We'll talk a little bit more about us and the work that we do. I'd like to introduce my business partner, Director of Business Development, Natalie Price, if she wants to raise her hand. Natalie's going to be facilitating in the background. She's going to be, as we're going through the presentation, this is going to be a very an informative presentation and webinar, as well as an interactive one. So as you have questions or anything, feel free to just jump right into the chat, pop in your question as we go. And Natalie will be monitoring and watching that kind of stuff. She'll also be posting information related to the dialogue as we go and the conversation percolates. I'll also like to introduce Handi Luigi, who's going to be assisting me with the content of this presentation. Handi, go ahead and say hi and just say a quick 30 seconds about yourself.
Hey everyone, happy to be here. Quick 30 seconds about myself. Construction business owner, so I own a construction business. Also have a big background in accounting and financial services, so I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Kelvin.
Awesome. No, awesome to have you here, and you know, your knowledge and expertise is always great to work with other subject matter experts. So without further ado, so the nature of what we're going to do today, we're going to do a webinar on social impact investing. Going to do a brief overview, just about a 15 to 20 minute presentation to kind of get the wheels going. And then we want to hear from you guys and start diving into this dialogue of real estate investing, small scale development, and what it means and why it's important and why it's one of the core building blocks of what LBU and Associates is trying to do here around the state. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get going. Natalie, as people come in, just let them on in, and we're ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here really quick. I'm hoping you guys can see my screen.
Yes, screen share is good.
Screen share is good. All right. Let me bring this back. All right, awesome. So our webinar today is on real estate impact investing. Not sure how many of you guys have really heard the term of social impact investing, but it's basically making key investments in your community that have some social benefit. And we're looking at real estate impact investing. It's revitalization led by us. It's one of the core components within our firm and one of the strategies that we preach here at LBU and Associates. So a little bit about LBU and Associates. LBU is a community and economic development strategy agency. We're focused on empowerment initiatives that build sustainable neighborhoods. We accomplish this through focusing on 3 core building blocks of economic development. You have community development, we have business and job growth, and we have small scale real estate development. These 3 key core building blocks are the framework of how we look at urban revitalization, or as we coin it here at LBU, responsible urban revitalization, because we want to build these 3 core building blocks with the community in mind and with participation of the key stakeholders, which are us. who are mostly impacted by what's happening. We do this by introducing, we have a framework and methodology that we call the Fsp process. That Fsp process is something that we put together that just kind of makes it simpler way to analyze projects and services that we deliver. So our FSP process is simple. Is it feasible? Is it sustainable? Is it profitable? That's how we go about evaluating the work that we do. Feasibility just means, can it be done? Sustainable means, can we uphold this project 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What will it look like in our community? And ultimately, is it profitable? We're going to be talking about real estate, and investors and developers, they pretty much want to do things that are profitable. At the end of the day, it's a business initiative. And so these are some of the elements that we drive home here at LBU and Associates, and it's the core focus points of our work. So let's dive in a little bit. Why real estate? Why are we talking about real estate? Real estate is tangible. It's something you can touch, you feel. It's also exclusive, right? We can't grow more land. It's something that's out there that we see. It's an investment opportunity that a lot of people do not touch because they simply don't understand it. And our goal with this webinar is simply to let people know that real estate investing is for everyone. And if you have a desire to improve the quality of life in your neighborhood, or you look at our communities and you want to make an impact in your investment strategy while you build economic wealth, real estate is a great opportunity to do it, and we're going to talk about that. So why? Why real estate? There's numerous tax benefits with real estate. Handi will talk about some of those things. It appreciates over time. It helps diversify your investment portfolio, and ultimately it helps create economic wealth. So we talk about social impact investing. So what exactly is social impact investing? And social impact investing, simply, we look to seek to generate a social or environmental benefit along with financial gains, right? We want financial gains, right? That's important, right? We want to make money and we want to feel good about the money that we're investing. So that's social impact investing, where we are now looking at how can we as stakeholders in our community put money into real estate development projects that help with affordable housing, help build stronger businesses, help reduce blight, help access to services. These are all social impact benefits that can be the rewards of our investments besides the financial gain. So we talk about, there's a host of different properties, and we'll mention them. We talk about investing in mixed-use properties. One of the primary reasons is the flexibility, right? Mixed-use properties lend itself to pedestrian-oriented, kind of your live, work, play environment. Mixed use allows a mixture of uses, is exactly what that means. You'll see that type of terminology in zoning or around cities' master plans. And all it means is, hey, in the same flexible boundary area, we're going to mix residential, we're going to mix office space, we're going to mix retail, we're going to mix institutional partners in there, and potentially other services such as nonprofit or health agencies and other goods and services can all operate out of this mixed space environment. So that's really the big thing when we say mixed use properties. It's really just driving as many amenities as possible. And when we're talking about small communities, right, you're talking about how can we make the quality of life better in a small community? Well, you want to bring as many mixes of uses as possible so that we now have access to a pharmacy, we have access to a small grocery, we have a restaurant, we have a beauty salon, we have a tax service. We want these things at our disposal within our community and walking distance, and this makes for a nice, sustainable neighborhood. So wanted to find some quick key concepts, right? So we talk about real estate investing, and at LB and Associates, we preach small scale real estate development. So what is a real estate developer? And here's a simple way of looking at what exactly is a real estate developer. It's someone who assembles land, capital, and human resources for the purpose of constructing an improvement. Simple. There's no pre-constraints on risk or return, right? So all a real estate developer is someone who assembles these pieces. They bring the land, they bring the people together, they bring the financing together and all the resources to basically make improvements to that property or that land. What's a small scale developer? Very simple, a developer that prioritizes the needs of the neighborhood. The projects are smaller, with an emphasis on building community amenities, public space, and a sense of place. That, my friends, is us. All of us on this webinar right now, as we exist, we are all small scale developers, and our jobs now is to go out and get those projects, right? And wanted to give a loose definition or a really brief definition of economic development. You hear the word and the term all the time, economic development. What exactly are we saying when we say economic development? Our definition here is simple again. It's the creation of wealth from which the community benefits are realized. It's the discipline of improving the quality of life for all residents. The primary purpose of planners and urban planners and people in your town within zoning and all these different aspects that you go through in the development world, at the end of the day, it is all about improving the quality of life for the residents of the community. So here are some challenges that come up now that we know these concepts, right? I love this quote: "The critics don't build great cities." And another quote from Mark Twain: "Buy land, they aren't making any more of it." So right away, real estate is one of the oldest and truest forms of creating wealth in this country. And we are not properly guiding the mindset for us to do this kind of work. So we want to take a little bit deeper look into this kind of work. And I said at the outset, anyone can become a small scale developer. What we need to know is the tools, the resources, the steps, the process. And these are things that we do here at LBU and Associates, whether it's through our Real Estate Developers Bootcamp or through webinars such as this, where we're sharing, collaborating, and giving information to everyone about what it takes to be a small scale developer, where we talk about the different steps, where you basically acquire a piece of property. You go and seek your entitlements on what it is you want to do with that property. You get the permitting, you take it through zoning. Once you get permitted and zoned, you now pull your permits and now you build it. And then once you build it, you now have to lease it up, right? So that's in a nutshell what it takes from A through Z to develop property, develop land. Now, obviously it takes some other know-how, it takes resources, it takes money and capital, and we'll talk about those things. When I mentioned at the outset about social impact investing, why us? Why the people on this webinar? The reality is no one understands your neighborhood better than you. We live in the neighborhood. We know the needs of the neighborhood. We know what kind of businesses would thrive in our neighborhood. We know where the parcels of land that are contributing to blight are at. We know where the opportunities are at. How often do we just go about and look at our, drive about our neighborhood and look at an empty plot of land and say, man, I wish they put ABC there. Well, the wishing that ABC was there is over. We will now talk about how we can put ABC, what we want, in that plot of land. And it's not that difficult, but it just takes the willpower and some knowledge and collaborating with other people in order to get projects done. The truth and the reality is your city is being planned with or without you, right? All municipalities have master plans, consolidated plans. Many larger cities have neighborhood revitalization zones. They have plans. Here in the city of Bridgeport, we're a coastal city. We have coastal resiliency plans. Bottom line is there's planning happening at a professional economic development level all the time. The question is, are we at the table? Is the community, who are they planning for? If they're planning for the people who live in this city, are they planning it with or without us? And if they're planning it without us, then we need to make our voices heard in those plans. But more importantly, we can now start planning around what those plans are. Because the truth is, they make a master plan, but they can't touch all aspects of the city. And it requires private investment. And that's where we come in. As small scale developers, we can make our private investments in what we want to put in. So key takeaways here. Again, any of us can become a small scale developer. Nobody understands your community better than you do. And your city is being planned right now with or without you. So do you want to get involved? So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Handi, because there's some key strategic things that are very important about real estate investing.
Yeah, thanks for passing it over to me. I wanted to go over at least 3 different points that make real estate investing a great side business. Number one, for pretty much anybody, whether you're currently an entrepreneur or not, whether you're working a 9 to 5, in the current environment, I've been working financial services now about 12 years. In the current environment, the vast majority of people that are saving money are saving it, in the IRA, most of them in 401ks. That means that, money gets taken out of your paycheck and goes directly to Wall Street. That's the vast majority of money that's being saved right now, because the options are very limited. Not only because the options are limited, but also because it's so convenient to do it that way. So real estate is a great thing. It's a great thing. It's a way to diversify away from Wall Street. I think in the past 12 years, we've had at least 2 economic crashes where all of a sudden overnight your portfolio drops 30%, 40%. And that's heartbreaking. And the only advice that they have once your portfolio drops like this, 30%, 40%, they say you got to wait it out. So I just want to, emphasize and back up what Kelvin is saying and say, yeah, real estate investing is a great side business. It's a great way to diversify away from Wall Street. It's a lot less risky and volatile once you get into an investment. There's also large tax advantages. So I have an accounting background. I have a lot of bookkeeping and tax preparation clients. When you start a side business and you start investing in real estate, it gives you tax advantages that others don't have. And of course, I could go on and on and on, but I'll just share just a couple. Number one, when you make money off of real estate, it's not like making money in another business, because the property itself has a value that can be used to offset that income. It's called depreciation. So if you have $1 million property every single year and you're generating income from it, there's something called depreciation, where you can use the value of that property and get big tax breaks. So it's not like making money in another business. There's a lot of other tax loopholes when you own real estate that actually help make that investment and make that income a lot more advantageous. So that's just one, and I'll share a couple more. If real estate is your first side business and you open up an LLC, all of a sudden you have access to a lot more deductions just for owning a business. The home office deduction, you could deduct utilities. There's all sorts of things. So I know that most people get the picture. I just wanted to plant that seed that, number one, it's an opportunity to diversify from Wall Street. Number two, it's an opportunity to have a new business, a side business that has tremendous tax advantages, not only on the income that you receive from the real estate, but as a business owner, all of a sudden having an LLC and getting involved in that type of business will put you in a better tax position than most people around you. And the third one, I just wanted to say that most of our money is saved in IRAs and 401ks, but there is a way around that. Right now, if you're not 59 and a half, for you to take out money and go buy property with it, you have to pay some form of penalty unless it's a first-time property. There's also restrictions. But there is something called a self-directed IRA, where you can take that money that you're saving up in your 401k or that money that you're saving up in your IRA, and you can, without fees and without charges, transfer it to what's called a self-directed IRA, and you can then start to make your investments out of there. So just wanted to kind of open up the conversation, is to say, to add on to the points that Kelvin is making, real estate is a very smart way to start a side business, a very smart way to diversify, and it's a very smart way to put yourself in a tax advantage position.
Thank you, Handy. That was awesome. And so it leads us to this next slide where we talk about, when we're talking about social impact investing and utilizing real estate as that key driver for small scale development. And, it's all about the why, right? You want to do something that has a social benefit that's going to impact your neighborhood. And we talk about, well, listen, what is the true impact of neglecting our neighborhoods? Because if we're not reinvesting in our neighborhoods, then who? Because we're separated by design. No one wakes up and says, I want to live in a poverty-stricken household or a poverty-stricken environment, or wow, look across the street, I just love my blighted neighborhood. We are conditioned to be in some of these situations. It's systemic. We're not going to dive deep into that, but we are separated by design. And believe it or not, zoning has been the key contributor to how we've been zoned out of opportunities. So lack of investments lead to communities of despair. And I'll take it one step further. We're not even talking about lack of investments, because some of us who are familiar with neighborhoods like Waterbury and New London and New Haven, Hartford, Bridgeport, Norwalk, we've seen misinvestments of our community dollars. So it's not that investments aren't happening, investments are happening without the community in mind. So the benefits aren't there, we're not getting to where we want to be. So we as community doers can now start taking action, right? And at the same time, we could be accumulating wealth and equity within our own neighborhood. So that's important. So there is a real true impact of neglect. And we see it all the time. You get your high crime rates, there's lack of opportunities, we're not growing jobs, we're basically have marginalized communities. And because the property values are lower, we're marginalizing access to capital. So by us as community stakeholders not reinvesting in our own community, we're actually predetermining the access to capital to be able to fund projects that we want to do. The more projects that start up in your community, the more synergy is created, the more access to capital will happen, because now we're increasing property values, and that's what it's about. So this is about a community buy-in approach, and that's what we preach here at Led by Us. It's also going to increase, right? We talk about physical and mental health disparities. All these things are tied to lack of investments in our neighborhood. And what we're doing is we're changing the approach, right? Forget the municipality or your institutional partners and people that are traditionally supposed to be making investments in your neighborhood. We need to start taking stock of where the opportunities are in our neighborhood, and let's use those opportunities to invest in this real estate, and let's us reap the rewards of financial gains, and then we can choose to reinvest in our neighborhood and other projects. As we continue to synergize that mindset and several small scale projects in our neighborhood, eventually we're going to attract job creators and other opportunities for people that want to invest in our neighborhoods. Go ahead, Miss Natalie.
We have a question in the box and I want to be able to address it. Mute yourself. Vanessa asks, what would you say to someone who has never lived in such communities? Is the assumption to invest in these communities because we live here? So Vanessa, do you want to clarify that? Was that?
Well, yeah, I just, I'm thinking out loud for someone who would say, I think it's Kelvin speaking, I'm thinking the wealth, unless you're a person who has chosen to live in those type of areas, we could say, okay, someone could say that's my community. Say, well, that's not my community. I've never lived in those areas. Why should I invest? Just because, quote unquote, we.
So it's social impact investing is really a personal statement, right? It's something we all want to invest. Let's start there, right? We all want to make money. We all want to diversify our portfolios. We're all looking at different ways to invest. Social impact investing is really just saying, hey, we can make investments that we feel good about. Does it mean you necessarily have to live in a neighborhood that you decide to invest in? No, but I think it's good practice to get to know a little bit about that neighborhood and figure out maybe some of the needs or lack of investments that have been going on, and maybe you can help. Maybe it's just you're interested in housing, and you say, "Man, I'm gonna buy this this four family unit over here, rehab the apartments, and create better stock housing for that community." It could be that simple. So I don't think that it requires you to necessarily live in that neighborhood. Some of us have moved away from neighborhoods that we grew up in, but we still have ties there. And some of us want to go back to communities we grew up in and invest in them. Some of us see opportunities in our city. I may live on I may live in a Westville section of New Haven, but I'm very interested in making improvements in the downtown neighborhood. So I think as long as you find your why, that's all that matters. At the end of the day, money's blind, right? At the end of the day, you're making investments and you're trying to get that in there. You know, Handi, anything you want to jump in and clarify on that?
Wanted to say, I think it's a great question, and I do agree with what you're saying, Kelvin. Also, you know, when we talk about the communities that we own, those communities that need revitalization and need the help, for a real estate investor, is also a great affordable entry point. Somebody might say, "Hey, why don't I just go to the highest end neighborhood, you know, for all those reasons, and I just look out for myself, try to go to a high end neighborhood, try to go to Greenwich or go to another." You know, when you're thinking about cities, you know, like Bridgeport, Waterbury, these cities that we're discussing, these cities that have, you know, all sorts of a diverse community, I would say, are also very good affordable entry points for somebody who wants to get into real estate. So there's a large real estate value differential. So for somebody who's starting out, you know, Waterbury, Bridgeport, these towns are great.
Put my slide. All right, guys, give me 1 second here. My screen got confused over here. What screen are you guys seeing?
Right now.
Is it just opportunities?
Yeah, opportunities.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not playing across from my screen. But in the interest of time, we're just going to go through quick. So, so what opportunities are there for us in the real estate game? And the truth is, listen, a lot of people start with just your traditional fix and flips, which is just acquiring a piece of property and fixing it up and selling it. But our thing here is, why not start considering fixing and holding, right? Now you get to hold the property, lease it out, make some income over time, and then take in the long-term appreciation of that property and take it and the tax advantages that Handi was talking about. The other opportunity here with us is networking and collaborating resources. We highlighted the definition of what a developer is, and it's just someone that puts together that human capital. It takes a team, right? So now I'm meeting, hey, I got an electrician, I have a plumber, I have an architect, I have a surveyor, I have someone that demos, I have a small lawyer that can help me through the zoning process. It's all about networking and collaborating resources. And as we put together all these people, we now have a team that basically allows us to develop land. So goes to the type of investment types, right? You have raw land or just a simple blanket lot. We can invest in single family, duplexes, a 3-family, a quadplex. And the cool thing about those types of properties right there is that from a funding standpoint, those still qualify with conventional mortgages to acquire those properties. Anything above 5 units or more is considered commercial property, and the funding for those, the funding guidelines and requirements from lenders are a lot different. But if you're looking to invest in a duplex or a 3-family, you can actually get that done using traditional financing. Then, of course, you have your office and commercial, industrial type properties. For the most part, I mean, that leads you to larger scale projects. But I personally like mixed use development where you can basically have an office or retail use on your ground floor and several apartments above. And that's a great way to kind of introduce amenities to a neighborhood. You're improving housing stock and you're getting involved in just a variety of opportunities there. Finally, what's our call to action here? Our call to action for you guys is basically, we'd love all of you guys to join us and just fill out an LBU investor profile. It's available right at our website. Natalie can even share a more direct link to it, but just simply check us out at ledbyusct.com. This is your unique investor profile. It's a quick questionnaire about where you are currently at within your investment world, so to say, and it lets us know if there are opportunities in real estate throughout the area that we may be able to present to you as a project that you may want to invest in. So with that said, we're going to be opening this up to yeah, some questions and stuff like that. Just want to thank everybody for listening to us. On this slide, you have Handy's information at Luigi and Associates and Buy and Fix Home Improvement. Feel free to reach out to him. Natalie can share this as well in the chat. And Led by Us, again, definitely check us out online. Fill out our investor profile. Just click on Real Estate Consulting, and we'd love to hear more about you. So that's kind of a primer on social impact investing, and basically want to open up the floor so that we can all now have a dialogue on real estate, some of the projects, some things that you guys have done, some experience that you guys have. So here we are. Who wants to go first? Who wants to talk about something?
Hi, Vanessa. I was able to read your question, and I wanted to make a comment on that. You're right. Not everybody grew up in neighborhoods that need to be revitalized. I grew up in Norwalk, Connecticut. I grew up in a home. My parents always are homeowners. I had my own room. I had everything. I did not understand what social impact investing meant to a community until I moved to Bridgeport, until I understood the breakdown in socioeconomic classes and how that really affects a community, especially an urban community. So in figuring out my role now in the community that I now live in, it would be a disservice for me to say, let me invest in other places, knowing that the investment of my community is needed, especially because I sit at so many tables with so many people who are making so many plans for a city they do not live in, they do not shop in, they do nothing in the community but create these plans that we have to now live in. So I think the approach that we're taking is just like this, what our business is, it's led by us. It's no longer being asked to sit at a table, but creating the table, and we invite people to sit at that table. Now, this doesn't have to be this, I mean, it can start small. It might start as, I'm gonna buy one house on this street. Then you wait for the next house to go on sale. Then the next house to go on sale. And then by the time you know it, in 15, 20 years, you literally own the block. And there's a power in that kind of ownership. So I definitely understand that we all didn't grow up in that, because I definitely didn't grow up. I grew up very privileged, right? But now in my adult life, I've realized, like, wow, there's really some issues that we have, and we're responsible for the communities that we live in.
Awesome. Vanessa, I hope that answers your question, or do you want to piggyback on that? You can unmute yourself, Vanessa. I see your question, but you can unmute yourself. And then, so can a person buy as a group, a partnership with someone who understands? That's a great question. Part of why we put out that LBU investor profile is because our goal is to create a real estate investment fund of collaborative people that we now pitch projects to each other that we can invest in. Another thing that we do in LBU is basically like our real estate development boot camps is we're creating this ecosystem and network of people that are in the development field, whether it's someone that does construction, someone who, you have plumbers, you have all kinds of different disciplines that kind of all come together. And so this is a great way where, Vanessa, if you have, let's say $10,000 in expendable income, you can try to bring this money to the table, and now you're sharing in the information and the decision-making. But obviously, I don't expect you to be the one with the hammer and driving the nails. I don't expect you. It could be, you know, again, maybe we have someone on our team that's going to be sitting in front of zoning with the zoning application in front of the zoning board and telling them what the use of our property is, pulled in building permits and all of that. Now, at some point, if you want to drive a nail or two, we're all in. It's your money too, you know. But there are strategically, and you see this around the country, a lot of people get together, or just think about it, if you just got 4 or 5 of your family members to pull $50,000 together and say, we're going to buy a property, right? But it requires getting people on the same page. And that's part of what our investor profile does. We start matching people with similar interests, and we have projects that we're working on, and we want to be able to pitch these projects to potential investors like yourself that can get a return on investment, feel good about your investment, and get involved about as much as you'd like to get involved with. I hope that answers your.
I think absolutely.
Beth, you asked the question. You want to?
Wait, Kelvin. Vanessa?
So, I mean, I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Vanessa. You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. What I was thinking is, you know, both of you answered. Natalie, you were right on point, because what I don't want us to think is that just because someone's a minority, they can have that connection with the community. I think that's sometimes what we assume. I think it would be no different from me saying, hey, I want to go invest in New Haven or Bridgeport or wherever, when I can't, you know, I didn't grow up there, or I don't have any, you know, type of connection. I can't really understand the people's plight. So I do like the response that, you know, having it as a group, because maybe somebody from, you know, a partner of mine grew up in that area and can say, hey, Vanessa, this is this area, and this is what I think we should do with it, and this is what the people are like, and this is what, you know, they would benefit from if we put this here. Because I would literally be walking into it blind, right? So great answer. I will definitely look at the link you guys sent out and dig into that a little bit more, and then figure out how to move money without penalties, because right now I do have most of my investments in such, you know, areas, but I've been thinking about real estate for some time now.
That's why we have Handi.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's about, and so just like this, we have resources available to you. Handi Luigi at gmail.com. Shoot Handi, follow up, because he's a tax expert and he can talk about how to move those monies with minimum penalties or no penalties, and the proper way to strategize and set up that pool of funding so that you can reinvest.
Definitely. No, great presentation to all of you. And hi, Natalie. Finally put a face and a name.
Oh, look at that. How are you?
Good.
Very, very cool. Maybeth, you had a question. Do you want to ask it directly so we don't have to go through the chat?
No, I was just kind of touching on, I guess, what Vanessa said a little bit. I mean, I can remember visiting family in the Bronx in New York and hearing as a young child how they, some of the buildings they lived in were co-op owned buildings. And I never really understood what that meant. And so I don't necessarily see that a lot here in Connecticut. And I'm just wondering, when Vanessa talks about groups investing, could that look like co-op spaces like New York has? Is that what you guys sort of envision as well, or is there opportunities for
I will
that?
say, so to your question of what a co-op is, or what's known as a cooperative, cooperatives date back to the 50s and 60s, and it's actually tied to HUD and housing, how you can build affordable housing as a collective. And then what it allows is, once it's built, it allows ownership of that co-op where they have common charges and fees. But in order to live there, you have to meet a particular wage guideline, like income guidelines. And also, you cannot purchase a co-op to rent out, for example. You must live there. So a co-op is totally different, and the goal of co-ops is to basically give quality, affordable housing for all the residents that live there. And it is about establishing ownership at an affordable level, and co-ops are a great means to do that. A little bit different from what we're talking about in terms of pulling funds together, where it's just pull funds together and say, hey, we have $50,000 pulled together. There's a 2-family down the street. We're gonna go buy that 2-family for $170K. We're gonna use that $50K to cover our 20% deposit, and then do some rehab. And next thing you know, we're gonna rent out those apartments and start recouping the income from it. And then you pay the mortgage. So a little bit different, but co-ops are very cool. And believe it or not, in Bridgeport, there are several co-ops, and Bridgeport has the largest co-op in Connecticut, known as Success Village, that has about 980 units. But co-ops, I really wish that more municipalities would work on introducing co-ops, but it is a HUD strategy. And for whatever reason, we don't properly use federal dollars, in my opinion, properly here in the state. But there is a difference, maybe. Hope that answered the question. Anyone else want to chime in and talk about social impact investing, or anyone has a project that they're already working on and they want to share with us, or is looking at buying some real estate?
I can talk about the food truck project, Kelvin, if that makes sense.
Yeah, talk about it, because it is about developing land, and so why don't you go ahead and introduce it, just so people can get a primer of what it is.
Yeah, so I work with Neighborhood Housing Services of Waterbury. We're a nonprofit that's headquartered in Waterbury, and we service Waterbury and the northwest corner of the state. And so we're looking at opportunities to invest, to basically, realign ourselves with additional income, and not sort of falling back to what most nonprofits fall back to, which is grants and donations from private dollars and such. So we looked at developing a food truck project in Waterbury, and with some guidance from Kelvin. He's been instrumental actually in getting that project sort of moving and shaking. But the idea is, right now in Waterbury, there's really no food truck area. Like New Haven has one, Hartford has one or two now. And so, the idea is basically to utilize a space in Waterbury to sort of transform that into an area where we can have a steady flow of food trucks in and out throughout the week. And so to add, an additional venue for folks to, and I apologize for my boys in the background. Kelvin, you already know. Yeah, so it's an ideal place to have sort of this in and out service of various food, besides your staple food products in one location, right? And then also an opportunity to engage community with some entertainment as well. So, having maybe some live music on Friday nights or comedians or things like that. So we're sort of at the still, I would consider it the beginning stages of working this project out. We've got some funders that helped support a consultant to get us moving along with the project and develop like a business plan. But I think at this stage, we're kind of looking to tap into folks who would want to, invest in that project. So I'm happy to share anything else if anyone has questions.
Yeah. That was a great primer, Maybeth. And the key with that project is it's a community development project, right? We're basically looking at bringing opportunities for people to get access to food and cuisines that are typically not coming into neighborhoods, give them an amenity to go to with some entertainment value, and just kind of create a nice synergistic hub that attracts people. And that's a great opportunity or a great land use to basically drive community development. And hopefully this particular project with Neighborhood Housing Services will help spark other investments nearby. And that's what and that's kind of how you start to percolate and be mindful of the type of investments that you want. And just as an update, Maybeth mentioned I've been working with them, and we have identified a piece of property that we've made an offer on, and we're looking at potentially closing the deal on that if other things come in line. And then obviously we're looking for investors and other people that want to get involved with the project. So it'll be the first food truck park in the greater Waterbury region.
Just imagine what that does for that community, the surrounding community, right? What it uplifts, what it changes, the pride that it gives the community that it surrounds, the value that it increases in the homes that are around. So when we're thinking about a project that impacts our community, those are the factors that we start thinking about. Does it become a walkable city? Can people ride their bikes? Do people feel safer coming outside? Are we creating social and engagement together, right? It's an ecosystem that works together. So that one little change, that food park can trigger so much great ripple effects in a community.
Very cool. Well, with that said, I know I see Mr. Campbell joined us. Handi, I want you to give your last points, and then we'll give an opportunity for some final questions. And if not, we'll call it a wrap.
Yeah, my last point would be, in the light of everything that's going on, we're always trying to figure out what can we do. And, I know Vanessa alleged to, where can we find our why? Real estate investing and making a positive change in those communities is just another way for you to be able to contribute to the, to the cause, to what's going on, without, spreading your opinion. This is a good way to put your dollars behind it and do something that's actually meaningful. Because I know wherever you live or wherever people live, just the overall standard of living is just a huge contribution to what happens in that community. So I just wanted to wrap up with that. When we're looking for the why, it's a great way right now to contribute to the economic development of these communities without just being opinionated per se.
Yeah, thanks for that. So just to wrap up, in the chat below, there's the link for the LBU investor profile. Please click the link, check it out, fill out the profile. It also gives us an opportunity to continue to connect with you and keep you up to date on different things happening here at LBU and our ecosystem. And again, feel free to stay in contact with us should you have a project or anything regarding business or real estate that is of interest to you. And
Hold on really quick. Maureen, I want to invest in property in Bridgeport, but where I live, but the taxes are intimidating. I joined a bit late and I'm not sure. Okay. Maureen, I'm going to ask that you do the investor profile. This is pretty much what we're talking about. And if everybody gets it, it's collaborating and being able to take on those intimidating taxes, that intimidating building that you want to build, to be able to build wealth within our communities. So I'm going to ask that you fill out that profile. This is exactly what we were discussing.
Yeah, one thing that I mentioned in the presentation, one of the things that we've coined here at Led by Us is our framework of methodology called the FSP process. I'm going to bring it up again because when we look at a project or you want to invest in a home or some project here in Bridgeport, and like you said, taxes are high, our mill rate is high. We evaluate it using our FSP process, and it's something that we teach. And the FSP process, again, just stands for, is the project feasible? Can we do it? Is it sustainable? Are you going to be able to maintain this property? And is it going to be profitable? If it doesn't meet the FSP process, walk away. Not every project we can do. We can't save the world, but our investment dollars strategically focused and implemented can have great impacts and rewards, not only financially for us, but have mutual benefits for the community. And that's what we're trying to teach and do here. So I appreciate the question. With that said,
Maybeth, we are open to throughout the state. I mean, Bridgeport is home, so we always take care of home, and home is where we understand the landscape, but there's so many similarities in different cities in the state of Connecticut, not just the state of Connecticut, but outside of Connecticut. We won't get there. I don't want to scare you guys. But our vision is to start in a fund, and where that fund goes, I hope it just grows.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're looking and evaluating different opportunities throughout the state. Traditionally, your urban centers. If that project's in Hartford, it's in Hartford. If it's in New London, if it's in Danbury, if it's in Waterbury, we want to put tangible projects in front of investors that meet our FSP process. And we do that as with the more people that fill out the investor profile, it increases the amount of opportunities or people that can invest in these projects. And we all get to diversify our portfolios, invest in creating some economic wealth for ourselves, and we feel good about it at the end of the day. And then hopefully this type of mindset continues to spread, and that's the goal. We are all small scale developers, and this was step one in becoming a small scale developer. With that said, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. It's been a great, great dialogue and sharing this information. We kind of kept it right to that hour. And thanks a lot. I really appreciate everyone joining us. Natalie, thank you for keeping everything in check with these Zooms. We know we're in a pandemic and COVID. We got to know how to use these tools. Handi, thank you again for joining me, man, and making this great presentation, kicking it all in. Much love. And thanks to everyone for joining us tonight.
All right, cool. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, guys.